continue and welcome our expert, Tariya sir. Please.
Hello everyone, very good afternoon. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Audible.
Okay, very good afternoon to all. Respected Dr. Mankodi sir, the president of the Association of Zoology, and on behalf of the Association of Zoology, AOZ, I welcome one and all over here. The association has been established in last year, and we have organized many events in collaboration with other organizations, universities, and departments. However, this is the first independent organization of the event, and this is the webinar for especially for the students of zoology, those who are working in the field of taxonomy. And this webinar would be not the this webinar would be one of the first series of the webinar which we are planning to organize, and following to this webinars as well as the seminars in which we will provide more and more guidance to our zoology students and our zoologists about different areas, different aspects of the zoology. I would not take much of your time because we are going to listen a very important speaker of this day, and I'm very happy to introduce my colleague Dr. Jignesh Trivedi over here. Dr. Jignesh Trivedi is the speaker of this first webinar series of AOZ, and he is, as I said, he is my colleague. He is working as an assistant professor of zoology at the Department of Life Sciences of North Gujarat University, Patan, where I and Jignesh working together, and we are looking after the masters as well as the doctoral program in zoology and environmental science. Dr. Jignesh is the student of Maharaja Sayajiraj Rao University of Vadodara. He has done his PhD under the guidance of Dr. Kavresh Vachrajani, and he worked on the crabs of the Saurashtra coast. In our university or in my department, whenever we see Jignesh or we see crabs, we think of Jignesh. So Jignesh is become a synonym of the crab, and crab is become the synonym of Jignesh. He is indeed a very nice researcher, very scholar researcher, published many research papers on the marine ecology, especially the crabs and the associated fauna and flora of the crabs. He has awarded by the startup project of UGC, and currently he is working in collaboration with several national and international institutions. Not only that, Jignesh has also contributed a lot in the taxonomy, especially the invertebrate taxonomy, and he has contributed 8 new species of crustaceans through his more than 80 research papers in able journals, scholarly journals of national and international repute. So at this age, Jignesh is like he is doing his best in the field of zoology and especially the taxonomy. He is also the PhD guide of our university, and very soon he will be registering few students of zoology under his able guidance. I would not take much of your time, but I invite one and all to participate in this webinar, and I'm sure the talk which is going to happen during this series of webinar will definitely add the benefit of the subject of zoology and all the students and faculties of the zoology. I again welcome Dr. Jignesh Trivedi over here on this platform of AOZ. I also welcome Dr. Jignesh Trivedi on AOZ because today only he became the life member of the association. So I also congratulate Dr. Jignesh Trivedi to be a life member of the Association of Zoology. This is a very nice coincidence that today he became the member of AOZ, and also today he is going to be an expert of one of the talk. So again, I welcome Jignesh over here, and I request all of you If you have any questions or if you have any suggestions for AOZ, questions for Dr. Jignesh Trivedi, you can please write in the chat box. So Jignesh will answer all the questions whenever the time available for the question and answer session. So now Jignesh, I will here and I am just moving to over you. So over to you, Jignesh.
Thank you very much, sir, for your kind words. Am I audible?
Yes. Yes,
Yes,
audible.
yes, Jignesh, you are audible.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir, for your kind words. And first, I would like to thank Dr. Mankodi, sir, for giving me chance to talk to the students and other faculty friends. I also thank the members and chairperson of AOZ for giving me this chance. So with this note, let me start presenting my presentation to you. I'm sharing my the screen. If you face any problem, am I not audible or the screen is not visible, please let me know so I can fix the problem. Thank you. Yeah, is the screen visible, sir?
Yes, Jignesh.
Okay,
It's
so let me start my talk. So the title of the talk is fantastic animal and how to identify them. It's a kind of I've chosen the fancy title to look good. And the talk is all about a talk on planning and publishing taxonomic work on animals. So here I'll be explaining my experience, that whatever I know about taxonomy and whatever I do. So in this talk I'll be mostly taking examples from my own work, but you can relate this example to the group on which you want to work or you are working. Okay, so that way you can correlate that how to go ahead with the taxonomy once you decided to work on. Here is my email ID and my WhatsApp number. So if you have any questions, any doubt later on, you can contact me anytime. I'll be I'll try to satisfy your question with the answers. So first of all, there are two different words which come across regularly. There is one is called taxonomy, and the other one is called the systematics. So a lot of people that are working on taxonomy and systematics, and we get confused that what is exactly the difference between taxonomy and systematics. So there is a clear cut difference between these two words. So basically, when you talk about taxonomy, it is involved in the classification and naming of organisms. So what exactly taxonomies do? They go to the field, they collect the samples of the animals, and they try to identify it and they try to name it if it is a new species. Okay, and then they are trying to find out the suitable place of this particular species in the entire large tree of classification. That is what we do in taxonomy. While on the other hand, we have systematics, where we try to find out what is the evolutionary relationship between the organism. So that kind of study is is done in systematics. Okay, so basically systematic is a large field where we can consider taxonomy as one of the branch. Okay, and then whether you study the taxonomy or whether you study systematics, you have to use few things which are listed over here. You have to study the morphology, that you can study the morphology to describe the species. You can take some behavioral observations about how the animal is behaving in different condition, maybe in the habitat or in relation to the environment. Okay, then you can go up to the genetics level, how the populations are connected, which species is originated from which population group, what is the ancestor of particular species living in the area. That everything will come in the genetics. And finally we can study the biochemical aspect. So that is what we do in the taxonomy and systematics. Now let me move on to the next topic, right? Why one should study taxonomy, or why one should become an animal taxonomist. So there are few reasons which I believe one should know when you decided to become the animal taxonomist. Okay, so the first reason is carrying the legacy of lenient taxonomy. Okay, so basically the taxonomical science is very old science, right? It all started in 1758 with this fantastic publication which is called as the Systema Naturae by Carolus Linnaeus. So we all know that before Linnaeus, people used to describe species, right? Because and then in the description they used to write everything, that in which habitat the species is found, what is the external morphology. So it was very very difficult for people to remember the name of the species and the classification. And then we have this particular person, the Carolus Linnaeus, right, who started seeing the animal based on their morphology, and then he started to putting the animal in a particular group based on their similarly looking character. So it all started in 1758 with this publication. So basically it's a 300-year-old science. So when you become the taxonomist, right, you will be carrying the legacy which is created by Linnaeus. And then you can see, yes, obviously you can see that, okay, I am from the house Linnaeus, if you are a fan of Game of Thrones. Okay, the second one is the feeling of working in the field of pure zoology. So basically, when you are dealing with animals, specifically in taxonomy, you have to catch the animal. You will be observing the animal. You will be dissecting the animal, and then you will be observing the animal under the microscope. You will be doing photography. You will be going to the field. So all these things are providing pure feel of zoology, because nowadays we all know that in college and universities as well as in school, right, the dissections are banned and everything is coming in the virtual, what you call the reality, which is absolutely very very good, but it is not giving the pure field of zoology. So taxonomy is the one which can give you the pure field of zoology. Now nowadays zoology has gone to different multidisciplinary aspect. We have different applied branch of zoology, but this one, the taxonomy, is the oldest one and the purest one form of the zoological science. Third one, every day is a new day. I use this particular phrase every time when I talk to my students and I talk to my friends who are working in the animal taxonomy. Why every day is a new day? Because in taxonomy there is no fixed protocol. For example, you are working on a one particular specimen, you are identifying it, you are classifying it, you are taking the photographs and making drawings and publishing paper. Then this part is over. When it comes to the next, the specimen, you have to start from ground zero. And every time to identification of the for this particular animal, you have to go to different part, you have to go through a lot of literature, you have to go to a lot of people, you have to talk with them, you have to consult different experts. So you will be in the that particular entire journey of identifying a single species. It is going to be interesting and it will be different at all the time. That is why I call this every day is a new day. For example, I was working on one species. I spent almost 1 month identifying it, and finally I concluded that this is the most common species found in the area. So that time, so every time is a new journey. That is why if you are working in the field of animal taxonomy, right, every day is a new day. Okay, lifelong work and commitment. So once you become the animal taxonomy, or once you decide to become animal taxonomer, or once you want to do a research in animal taxonomy, it is a lifelong commitment, because you will be working on this particular field for your entire life. Still, the work will not be completed. It's a huge field. A lot of species are there. You'll be watching the species, this kind of species, and that will take a lifetime to reach up to certain level. Let me show you some examples. So you can see this is the great person recently passed away at the age of 79 years. He is Dr. Terry Irwin, who is the founder of Zookeys. So basically Terry was an excellent entomologist. He worked on the taxonomy of beetles, okay, for his entire life, okay, and he worked on a single family. So it took almost a lifetime, right, to see. Just he described around 439 new species, and according to him, he's saying I have just started working in the taxonomy of this particular family. So he took entire lifespan for Terry to understand what exactly the diversity. And Terry is one of the scientists who actually estimated that how many arthropods are found in the world. And according to his paper published around in 1986, according to him, that there are 30 million arthropods living on this planet Earth. Right? If you see the recent estimate, we have around 1.5 million species, all the animal species. But according to Terry, right, there are 30 million species of arthropod. It may be what you call a large estimate, maybe some problems, but according to his experiment, he speculated this much of species, right? So that was a very good contribution by Terry. Okay, the other one is from India. We all know this well-known face, Dr. Salim Ali, who spent his entire life working on the taxonomy of birds. Okay, still we are finding new bird species in India. So he is one of the best example that you start with somewhere in the young age and then you go to and you die. Still the work will be left. So it's a lifelong commitment. You will be enjoying for your entire lifestyle and what you call the lifetime. Watching these wonderful animals. Okay, the next one is glamour. Obviously every science field should have glamour. So what is the glamour in the animal taxonomy? Once you describe a new species, this is my example, when you describe a new species you will be everywhere. Okay, the species will be listed in the world level database. For example, when I describe the first species, we describe the first species Ilioplex sayajiroi, which is now included in the world register of marine species. So yes, people will be watching you. You'll be all over the news. Many news people wrote about the discovery of the species at that certain period of time. Then people will forget you. Okay. Next, many publications and citation. Yes, taxonomy can give you a lot of publication, right? A 10-15 publication a year is a very common thing in terms of animal taxonomy, right? We always joke that how many people you published last year, right? Many scientists say that okay, I published 30 paper in last year. So basically that you will get a lot of publications and a lot of citation. Let me give you one example. He is Professor Peter Ng, who is also the crab authority, or the person who is expert in the crab taxonomy. Right, Dr. Peter Ng is working on the taxonomy of crabs for almost last 30 years, and he has published more than 600 research papers in last 30 years. And you can see the citation, right? 27,800 citation. So huge. See the H index 62, I10 index 425. Lot. And then you can see the single paper wrote by him, the Systema Vacuum Part 1, got cited for 2027 times. This is a pure taxonomy paper. We will talk about it later on. That is called as Ang et al. 2008. Very famous in my field. 2000 citation for a single paper. So you can get a lot of publications and a lot of citation, which will help you to grab the job in the university, because nowadays it is very important that you should have good publication, many publications, and many citations. So this is the field which can give you a lot of publications and citation. Okay, so these are the reasons which I believe, right, which will help you to become an animal taxonomist. Now, yes, and last point, traveling is a part of work, because nowadays we are in a busy schedule. We do not have time to travel to different parts. Those who are working in other fields. But when it comes to animal taxonomy, we are always in the field. We are always traveling. You will be visiting, beautiful areas which are not, frequently visited by the tourists. For example, if you are working in the retail, right, like Perry spent his entire life in the Amazon rainforest. He visited many places which are never been visited by the humans. So when you are the animal taxonomist, you will have access, to the beautiful places around the world. When you collaborate with the foreign scientists, you can go to their country, and then you can go to the field where you will be, traveling to places. And then if you have the research project, your travel will be free. So you'll be traveling, a lot of places during your, research period. Okay. Next one, what are the success mantras to work in the animal taxonomy? So I have listed out few things which you have to keep in mind when you start working in the animal taxonomy. Let's start with the first one. Choose your animal group of interest, right? The animal kingdom is huge actually. There are around 44 phylums which are classified in the kingdom Animalia. 44 phylums, lot of classes, lot of families, lot of genera, and lot of what species. So you have to find out which group of animals is attracting you, on which you want to work on. So you have to choose the group wisely. How I chose my group, right? First and foremost thing, when it comes to vertebrate and invertebrate, the what invertebrates are there, a diverse group as compared to the vertebrates. And vertebrates are easy to spot. That is why you will find that in the vertebrate taxonomy you have a lot of experts. Okay, for example, let's take birds. In Gujarat, we have a lot of experts of birds who can identify the species very easily. Okay, but when it comes to the other part of the animal file, very animal kingdom, when you go to invertebrate side, the number of experts will go down and the diversity will increase. So that is how we plot the graph. The diversity, when the diversity go up in the invertebrate, the number of expert will go down, because when the size decreases, when the animal size decreases, it is very difficult to identify them, and firstly, it is very difficult to collect them, because they are preferring a very peculiar habitat, and that habitat may not be accessible or may not be near to your place. So you have to travel to that habitat. You have to collect it. So first and foremost thing, you have to find out that which group of animal is attracting you. Every group has a lot of scope, but specifically invertebrate has a lot of scope because we have a lot of diversity, huge amount of species, and very less number of experts. As I took the example of Terry Irving, he worked on a single family for his entire life. Okay, so that is when it comes to phylum Arthropoda, which is the largest phylum of the animal kingdom, right? And then we have the class Insecta, the largest class in the world, where you can find that people are working on a particular family, particular genus for their entire life. Still, the work is not completed. So whatever group is giving you so much of interest, you have to choose the group wisely, and then you have to go to the next step, which is called as a reading of literature. So when it comes to taxonomy, the papers are very much important. How much the related literature you have, okay, that is very much important, because that is the only thing which will help you to understand the animal taxonomy. Okay, then first, when you do the literature review, first start with the basic paper which are describing the external morphology of the species, because in taxonomy the external morphology is very important. Sometimes we go to internal morphology, but most of the time the external morphology is very important. So first you have to understand your animal, that whatever group you are working. For example, you are working on crabs, you are working on beetles, you are working on spiders, you are working on lizards. You have to understand what is the external morphology, which morphological characters are used for the identification. You have to be familiar with that, and then you start building your the compilation of literature. Okay, where you have to go, what is happening on the international level, what is happening on the national level. Once you have the compiled literature, then you can go ahead to the next step. The next step is choose your geographical area of work, right? You can't cover the entire world. So first and foremost thing, you have to choose your focused geographical area. For example, for me, first I chose to work on the Saurashtra coast for my PhD. Okay, and then I enlarged my area to Gujarat level, and now I have made collaboration with different people in India. Now we are working on the India level after spending 10 to 11 years in this field. Okay, so first,
Dr. Jignesh, right?
yes,
You need to share your screen once again, please.
okay.
By mistake, some of the other participants shared the screen. That's why. Yes, now it's fine. Fine. Thank you.
Is it visible?
With this, I put a request.
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, so we were on the the second point, choosing the geographical area work. So first you have to start with a small area. First, start with a small area. Do the extensive collection in the area. If your area is falling in the protected area, if it's a national park or sanctuary, you have to go through the necessary permissions. Once you have the permission, start seeing the animal, start collecting the animal, and start observing the animal. So start with the small geographical area. Once you have enough knowledge about the diversity, once you have enough knowledge and experience about the dissection or identifying the animals, then you can enlarge your area, and slowly you can go ahead. Okay, that is the third stage of doing animal taxonomy. The fourth is the learning the basic methodology. So basically, each and every group of animals, for animal taxonomy, we have to collect the specimen. Without it, it is not possible. When it comes to the vertebrate, you can share. You can click the photograph. That will be helpful in identifying. But when it comes to invertebrate fauna, you have to collect the specimen to do the morphology. So basically, you have to learn what is the basic methodology of collection of your interest group, right? For example, if you are working on the insects, right, there is a hand picking method, there is a pitfall method, there is a light trap. So you have to learn what are the basic methodology for the collection of the specimens that you have to learn. That is the fourth step of working in the animal taxonomy. Okay, so specimen collection method, that is one. The second one is the photography of specimen. Okay, but in this particular animal taxonomy, the photographs are very, very important. Your photograph should be very, very clear, which are showing the morphology of the animal. Let me give you an example. This is the species we recently described, okay, which is called as the Tritodinamia bengalensis, based on a male specimen coming from Bengal. You can see the photograph. They are showing each and every morphological part. You can use a white background, then you can cut down the animal. You can, actually crop the animal using Photoshop, and then you can change the, brightness and everything. But each and every part should be clearly visible. When you are writing the description, you have to mention, you have to cite the figure. So when your reviewer is reading your description, he or she should all the characters which you have described. So for that, this kind of photographs are very important. So therefore that you have to buy, a very good camera, and you have to set up your own, setup for the photography. Like we, recently said, the photography setup in our laboratory, where you have to, adjust what is the shadow, light is coming from which part, whether entire animal is in focus or not. If the animal is large, it is perfectly fine to click the photograph. But when the animal in a very smaller size, for example amphipod, where the entire size is around 12 mm or 14 mm, so very, very small animal, at that time you have to use, different photographic method. So that is the second, thing which you have to remember, the importance of photography in the animal taxonomy. The third one, the weapon the animal taxonomy use is called as a microscope. So this is the stereo microscope, very, very important. In every animal taxonomy lab you will find this instrument, and this is the only instrument we require when we do the, identification of the animal. This is called as a stereo microscope. Okay, nowadays, lot of, high-end companies are selling the stereo microscope, which are very, very costly. But yes, we get, some microscope in a cheaper price. For example, this one I bought for my own at my home, which is coming from a, company called MATLAB, where you can purchase this, this entire setup, including the overhead camera, which will help you to take the photographs of different morphological part of your animal. And this entire setup you can buy in around 50K. Okay, this is microscope. And lastly, the dissection and drawings of morphological parts. Okay, so you have to learn the dissection. First you have to list out what morphological parts are important for the identification of your species, and you have to learn the dissection will come with practice. So you have to, dissect a lot of specimen, right, to get hand. For example, when it comes to amphipod, that is around, 13 mm long animal, very, very small, we have to dissect, 20 different morphological part. Okay, so for that you have to do a lot of practice. And then we have the drawing. So if you see the old papers, like for example this paper was written by, Alcock, right? He wrote this paper around in 1895 or something. They were best scientists. The old taxonomists were very good artists. You can see the figures, right? They have actually drawn this figure looking at the actual specimen, but they were very, very good artists, and we are not. Okay, so what we do, we have invented a new methodology. Over here you can see this is the photograph, and this is the drawing of the dorsal part. This is again, the maxilliped of the amphipod. The entire length will be around, 1 mm. Okay, so what you need to do, you just click this kind of beautiful photograph using the, stereo microscope. You put a butter paper and trace the boundaries. Okay, so what we have done, we have traced the boundaries, so we have the shape, and then the CT and everything detailing you can do by hand. Okay, and this again you can see the carapace is depicted over here. Okay, so your drawing should be very, very good. So for that you need to be, an artist. You can find out that, for example, I don't do drawing, my wife does all the drawing. Okay, she is a very, very good artist. Okay, so you have to find out that who are your friends who is good with drawing, or you can contact other people who are, doing taxonomy. Or this thing you can also do using Photoshop. Now Photoshop is also line drawing, so you can do the line drawing and you can do the detailing. Some of the, morphological characters are better you draw in the Photoshop, but by practice you will learn. So this is one more, very, very important thing. Whatever group you are working, you have to draw the morphological parts, specifically in case of invertebrates. Okay, and last, make the inventory of expert and collaborate with them. Now this is very, very important part. Once you start working on the animal taxonomy, whatever group you have selected, you have to find out who all are working on the taxonomy of this group. They may be from India, or they may be from foreign. So you have to work with the best people. Now, what is the mistake like the budding taxonomic does over here is, for example, we click the photograph of the animal and we directly mail it, sir, please identify. That is how it is not going to work. Okay, because every taxonomist is very very busy, because we all are loaded with lot of specimens we have to identify. And I told you earlier, for each specimen the identification time is not fixed. For one specimen you can spend up to 1 month, and for one specimen you can identify up to in 10 minutes. Okay, so whenever you are sending just photograph, identify it, nobody is going to help you. But you have to reach up to certain level. For example, whenever you have the specimen, try to identify it by yourself. At least reach up to family level or genus level, and then you ask a question to the expert that, okay, I have identified this animal up to this level, up to genus level, based on this morphological character. First, you have to explain what is your aim, why you are collecting this specimen, whether you are working on the taxonomy of this group or not. Okay, sometimes naturalists send us photograph, we comment, but that is not a proper way, because in case of invertebrate, without the examining the specimens, it is not at all possible to comment up to the species level 100%. Okay, so you have to collect the specimen, right, take the photograph of different morphological parts, reach up to certain level, up to family or genus level, and then you collaborate with the expert, or then you start asking the question, and definitely the expert will start guiding you. They will give you the clues, okay, see this part, see this part, see that part, and finally at the end of the day you will be confirmed, okay, this is the species. If the species turns out to the new species, you can collaborate, you can write a paper together, and that is how you collaborate. But first you have to try with yourself. So these are the success mantras when you want to work in the animal taxonomy. You have to keep in mind this many things. Okay, now what kind of studies you can conduct once you decided to work in the taxonomy? So what I have gone through the this thing. So first one is the species checklist. Now this looks very very easy, that okay, I am making a species checklist, and many people make species checklist. But what are the taxonomically correct or validated checklists? Let me give you example. So when you want to make a checklist, for example, you have got one specimen. Okay, you identified it, but you have no idea whether this species is reported from Gujarat, from India, or so, because you have no idea, or whether it is a new species, because you do not have the baseline data. So what I did, I tried to make baseline data for my group. Okay, so I started with Gujarat. Recently we published this paper. This is annotated checklist of marine decapods of Gujarat state. Okay, so now I have compiled all the studies which are the published in Gujarat about the decapod crustacean. So this paper has a long list of species which are already described from Gujarat. So whenever somebody gets the specimen of decapod crustacean, he can identify and compare with my list. If the species is not listed in my list, then it will be the first record from Gujarat. So this kind of checklists are very very important when it comes to the distributional record of species in different area. Okay, this is the India level checklist we recently published. This is on the barnacles. Okay, so you go through the India level checklist, you identify the species and compare. If the species is not available in this kind of database, it means it is a new record to India. So this kind of species checklists are very very useful for the budding taxonomists who are just starting with the taxonomy. So whenever they get the species, they identify, they compare it with the our database, and if the species is not there, then it is a new record or new paper for you. So we try to make different now, but these checklist papers are very very tricky. They consume lot of time. For example, this is the best example which we did about the marine recurrent crabs of India. This publication is a monograph published in Zootaxa. To prepare this particular list, it took around 3 years for us to do the preparation. Why? Because in this list we have recorded 911 species of marine recurrent crabs from India, and this is the list. Okay, so for each and every species we have found out that which references have recorded them. For example, let's take this Kalapa bilineata. Okay, it is recorded from Karnataka by this many authors, in Kerala by this many. So we have gone through each and every reference which was published on the marine recurrent crabs of India, starting from 1775 to 2018. So we have to go through a lot of literature to make the list. And again we have commented on each and every species taxonomy. For example, this is Calapa exanthematosa. You can read the comment. This species has often been confused with C. japonica, with which it was synonymized until recently, Hung et al. 2011. So for this particular checklist, you have to spend a lot of time. You have to go through each and every references. You have to list down the species, and you have to check what is the recent taxonomy, in which genus this particular species is falling right now. So this takes a lot of time, but once the database is ready, it will be used as a baseline database. And then what is the importance of this particular work? It can give you a lot of citation. For example, we published this paper in 2018, and so far it has been cited for 61 times. So this first work, the species checklists, are very, very important. You have to work hard, you have to spend a lot of time, but once it is published, it can give you a lot of citations. So these are very, very important work. This is the first type, species checklist. Okay, what is the second type? Okay, so this is the second type, the new distributional record for region or the country. Okay, so yes, you start with Gujarat, right? We collected this specimen, we compared with the database. It was not there in the Gujarat state database. That is why it becomes the first record. So this kind of small papers you can get. It can be for Gujarat state, it can be for the region. For example, this species was first time reported from west coast of India. It was not recorded from west coast of India. It was recorded from the east coast of India. So this is the new distributional record. So you can publish a paper for the region, and then you can publish a paper for India if it is not available in the Indian database. So these are the distributional record papers. This paper looks very, very small because most of the time they will be published in the short communication. But these distributional record papers have a greater importance. Why? Like recently we published this paper about the 3 new records of crabs for Campaniteridae family. Why it is important? Because these kind of papers are very, very important to find out what is the actual distribution range of the species, and these species are a part of very good hypothesis which the scientists are working on. Okay, these 3 species are very, very common on the coast of Somalia, in the Red Sea coast, okay, over here in Oman, as well as in the Red Sea and in Pakistan. But in India, these species are only found in the northern Gulf of Kutch. Okay, so this is the actual distribution range. It is, the scientists are also saying that okay, the species, because this is the Leptocercius kuwaitensis, it was described from Kuwait. Okay, it is commonly found over here. So may be possible that this species has a distribution or the enlarged distribution over here. The larvae are floating with the water flow, because this is the water flow of the Indian Ocean. The water will be coming from this side, it is taking turn and going down. So with the flow of the water, the larvae are coming over here, and the suitable habitat is the mangroves and the mudflats, which are plenty of mudflats and mangroves are available in the north of the Gulf of Kutch. Okay, so when the scientists are studying the population genetics, whether the Somali population, the Yemen population, Oman population, Pakistan and Indian population are connected or not, for this kind of larger scale studies, these distributional records are very, very important. So at the first glance, the paper looks very simple, it's just a short run, but for a larger scale, these kind of papers are very, very important. And then yes, you can prove whether all these populations are connected or not. So for larger scale of studies, these distributional records are very, very important. Okay, so you start making the checklist, then you start making new records. You are still in the process of getting experience or getting expertise in the species. But sometimes what will happen? Sometime, right, you will be stuck with some specimen, and that could be a new species. So how to describe a new species? Let me give you one example. This is called Dotila intermedia. That's a very, very small crab which is commonly found in the mudflat habitats throughout India. So we were working on all the Dotila species of India. At that time, we stuck with one specimen which was coming from Bay of Bengal. Okay, so let me tell you what it is. So basically, this is Dotila intermedia. Okay, so we found Dotila intermedia in West Bengal, right, in the Digha coast. But we also found this specimen from Digha coast. So when we were comparing, we initially thought all the specimens are Dotila intermedia. But when we started looking the specimens very, very carefully, we found out there is a huge difference in the morphology. And what was the difference? Over here you can see These are two large tooths available in the sternum, and now I'm not going into much detail of the taxonomy or the morphological terminology of the crab, but I can show you the differences. So over here you can see this is a flat part or a curved part, but these two teeth are not there. So that was a huge difference between these two specimens. Even in the teeth pattern of the cheliped, both the chelipedes are different in size, okay, or in shape. When you go, sorry, okay, when you see the abdomen, right, this is the abdomen of both the crab, you can see the shape are different, and even the reproductive organs of these two male crabs are showing different. So sometimes when you get stuck up with such kind of specimen where it could be Dotila intermedia, but it is not exactly matching with the original species, at that time you will realize, okay, this is the new species which is not matching with every species of Dotila, and it is very very close to Dotila intermedia, but it is showing morphological variation. So when you stuck with such kind of specimen, you can describe this species as a new species, but it is by luck. You have to have a large collection, and by luck you will stuck upon the new species. Okay, so you can publish a new species like this, okay, like we did for we describe around 8 new species. The first species which we describe, we named after the Sayajirao Gaikwad, the Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad of Baroda. Okay, and then in the last 10 years we could describe around 8 different species of different group of crustacean. Okay, so we used to name the species after legendary person who have a significant contribution in the field of education, in the field of research, in the field of zoology. So Maharaja Sayajirao has a great contribution. He started the university. Later on, we published a species named after the J.C. George, founder, head of the department, like of zoology of MSU Baroda. Like we, named all the species after the great personalities who have, greater significance or who have contributed a lot in the field of animal taxonomy. But not necessary. You can name the species after different features. For example, this is a Philippine eagle, which is the genus name is Pithecophega, and Jeffrey is a person, but this Pithecophega, this name is coming from his feeding habit, because this Philippine eagle is feeding on monkeys. Okay, that is why the Latin word for monkey is Pitheco, and Phega means eating on the monkey. That is why they have formed the name. This crab is called as a Pilumnus minutus because of its minute size. So you can name the species after the feature. Okay, again we have the Balænoptera musculus due to its muscular body, very very common. Hoplobacterus tigrinus due to the tiger's type. Like we have lot of things. This is the Indiana chiravasi, a frog. It is named after its habitat because it is living in the rock crevices. So the Sanskrit word for rock crevice is called as a chira. That is why it is called as a chiravasi. So you can play with Sanskrit also. This small crab is coming from Indian Ocean. The name is Ratnakara because the Sanskrit name of Indian Ocean is Ratnakar. You can name a species after the Indian Ocean. Okay, you can name the species of a film star or your favorite film star or favorite people. For example, this beautiful wasp species is named after the pop singer Shakira. The beetle is named after Adolf Hitler. Like we have many examples. The beautiful spider is named after Angelina Jolie. Okay, Barack Obama has a name on the spider. This wasp is named after Gatsby. Okay, a lot of people, right? Jennifer Lopez, Nelson Mandela. A sea slug, entire genus is named after Nelson Mandela. Okay, so when you are taxonomy, you have liberty to name the species after any person, any film star, anything. Okay, for example, this particular beautiful species is named after Donald Trump. Not because Donald Trump has a greater contribution, because on the head of this particular species, it is having golden color hair which are matching with Donald Trump. So they be using this character, they name the species after Donald Trump. Okay, the movie character, this particular species is named after Batman because it is having Batman like symbol over here. That is why it is called as a Batman. This crab is named after the movie Harry Potter. So we have Harryplex genus and Severus, name coming from Harry Potter. Okay, again the spider is named after the Harry Potter movie character. We have a shrimp species named after the band Pink Floyd because it is having beautiful pink coloration on the chalipod. Okay, name the species after its locality, from where it is coming. For example, this is Kutch gecko. The name is Kutchensis because it is found in Kutch. We have Komodo dragon coming from Komodo Island. We have the Ganges river dolphin coming from Ganges river, Gangetica gangetica. This crab is coming from Iran, so type locality Iranica. This crab is coming from Persian Gulf, that is why it is Persicum. This gecko is coming from Porbandar, that is why the name is Porbandarensis. So you can always name the species after locality. So once you describe a new species, you have liberty to name the species after anybody. You can also name the species after your wife, your mother, your father, whatever you want. So you have a huge liberty. So you can famous their names by giving a name to a particular species which you have described. Okay, this is the most important part. Once you are used to the new species, this is the most important, and the third stage which is coming, which is called as a redescription and revision of taxonomy of old species. Because as I said earlier, this is a 300-year-old science. Okay, so the species described in the past, right, according to the modern taxonomy, where the species are standing, is there any change in the genera? Do we need to place them in a new genus or newly described genus? So redescription and revision of taxonomies are very, very important, and this is the most difficult study the taxonomists would do. Okay, let me give you some example. This is the best document. This is the first published study about the marine biology of Gujarat. This is coming from the marine zoology of Okha Mandal in Kathiawar, which was done by a British zoologist, marine zoologist James Horner. And this entire study was sponsored by the government of Baroda, by the Maharaja Sayajirao of Baroda. Okay, so during this particular study, there was one species which was described by Hornell and Southwell in 1909 from Balapur Bay, which is located in the Bet Dwarka. Now, what is the problem with the species? Okay, this is called as the Archotheris plecunei. This is basically a pinnotherid crab which is living inside the bivalves. Okay, this one is living inside the oyster, which is called as a window pine oyster. It is a parasitic species. Now, the problem with the species was, you can read the description. The description say that the dactyli of the third and fourth pair 1.5 times as long as those of the first and second. So it means it wants to say that this particular last part is 1.5 times longer than the first and the second. Now this is the statement coming in the paper published in 1909, but it is not matching with the figure, because the figure may be made by the artist. So the mistake the artist did it, all the dactylis over here, you can see all the dactylis are of similar size. So the figure is not matching with the description. So there was a huge problem. Okay, where Hornell and Southwell has deposited the type specimen, nobody knows. Type specimen is the specimen on which the scientists have wrote the description, made the drawing. So where the original specimen collected from Balapur Bay, we don't know. So this was a huge confusion. Okay, so me and my colleagues, okay, Dr. Peter said that, okay, this place is located in Gujarat. Why don't you go and collect some specimen and find out what exactly is? So we collected the specimen and we found out, yes, what is written in the description is correct. The specimen is showing that, okay, these two dactylis are larger than the first and second pair. So we wrote a paper and it is published in a very good journal called Zootaxa. So this kind of old taxonomical problems where the descriptions are not matching with the drawings, okay, the type specimens are lost, okay, you can do the redescription, but these are little bit difficult as compared to describing the new species. Let me tell you one more example. This is a beautiful species, described from West Bengal by Maya Dev when she was working on the fauna of West Bengal, and he described this as a new species, Heteropinopin neolevis. Recently, my colleague from Zoological Survey of India found the type specimen, the single specimen on which the Maya Dev has described the species. And after examining the photographs and after examining the specimen by my friend, we found out that this is not a new species. It is already described, which is called as the Anictumnus quadridentatus Deman 1895. So while describing the species, right, Maya Dev must have not seen the description of this particular species, and by mistakenly he described a new species. So what we did, we synonymized Hyptope neolevis with the Anaptumnus quadridentatus. So we have to correct the mistakes which are done in the past unknowingly. So this is the best part, the redescription and the what you call the re-examination of the type specimen and where they stand right now. These papers are very very important, because now we are actually correcting the mistakes done in the animal taxonomy research. So this is the most difficult and most important part for any taxonomist, and this paper goes into very very good journals. Okay, fine. So these are the four different type of studies which you can conduct in animal taxonomy. Now the last part where you can utilize your MSc students. Okay, so ecological studies on newly described or recorded species. This is very very important. For example, we recorded Clibaneris ransoni, a hermit crab, first time from India. Now when we gone through the literature, we found out that there is no ecological data available on this particular species. So this student Pooja Patel, she did beautiful work on the ecology, a small work on the ecology of this particular species. So this is the first data set coming about the ecology of this particular species. So this kind of small work you can give it to your MSc student, which are not time consuming, do not require the vast extents of data, do not require the seasonal work. So when you plan this kind of small work, you can get some easy publication, and this publication will increase the number of publication of yours. So here we require quality work and we require quantity. If you have both, it will be easy for you to grab the job. Okay, now what is the scope? What is the scope available in the animal studies? So I have this particular list, which is about the diversity of marine flora and fauna of India, which was published by Venkatraman and Wafar in 2005. This is the list of different taxa we have, and you can see, okay, you can see there are very very less numbers. For example, here you can see tardigrada is very very difficult group to work, but we have only 10 species. Okay, Copepoda only 1900 species. Here we have Branchiura, right? We have only 5 species. So these are the there are very very small number. These are the very very important group where you can start doing your work. So that is how you have to select that which group has not touched by anybody. For example, I showed you the example of the barnacle checklist. How we started working on barnacle. Right now nobody is working on barnacle taxonomy in India. So we had MSc dissertation student. She said, sir, I want to work on the barnacle taxonomy of Gujarat. She collected some samples from barnacle from the Gujarat coast in 1 year, and we found out that okay, there are 2 species which are first time recorded from Indian coast. Okay, we had a collaboration with the barnacle taxonomist of the most important barnacle taxonomist of the world, Dr. Benny Chan, and he was so happy with the work that the paper was published in the Zookeys, that is around 1.2 impact factor journal, and the entire article processing charge was paid by Benny Chan. Secondly, we made a checklist of barnacles of India, and that paper is published in the Frontiers of Marine Sciences, that is 4.9 impact factor journal, and then the article processing charge is more than 2 lakh. The entire charge was paid by Benny Chan. Okay, so you can see these are the groups which are not at all touched by anybody, or right now nobody is working on that group. So initially it was very very difficult for the student to understand the group, because to dissect the barnacle is again difficult. It's very very small morphological part, but once you have the grip, okay, it will be easy for you, and you will be alone in that group working in India. Now what is the scope in Gujarat? This is the old data compiled by the Pilo et al 1996. This is about the biological diversity of Gujarat. You can see several groups. For example, Ctenophora, no data available. Platyhelminthes, at that time no data was available. Nematoda, no data was available. Grastothica, Acanthocephala, no data is available. So these groups are never been touched by anybody in Gujarat. So you can start working on this group. Initially it will be very very difficult for you to get familiar with this group, but once you spend some time reading the material, watching the animal, and then you can do wonders. Okay, for example, amphipods. When we started amphipod, right, we were just going through the field and collecting some specimen of amphipod. We were thinking, let's see what amphipod looks like. We collected some specimen from Shivrajpur, and then we took it seriously. We started working on it, and then we described two new species of amphipod coming from Shivrajpur. And in India, right now, nobody is working on amphipod, and we got a project from UGC to work on the amphipod diversity of Saurashtra coast, because right now nobody is touching. So you have to find out a certain group where competition is very less. Nobody is working in India. At that time, you can collaborate with the the foreign experts, and you can do wonders. Okay, so this is the scope. Finally, thank you so much for your time and patience and listening to me.
Before anybody starts anything, I would certainly take the, opportunity to say thank you very much to Jignesh. The reason is that Jignesh is one of the students whom we have seen working in different groups initially in the starting, but then he concentrated on this particular aspect of taxonomy and especially on arthropoda, and generated a great deal of the documentation that all of us know very well. And that is what he emphasized also while he was explaining. He emphasized the need and the value of those type of publications and everything. Presently he is again continuously concentrating, even though he is in Patan, where no marine area is there, still he is actively working on that particular area, number one. Number two, initially also, when he worked on these crustaceans, he was in Vadodara, and no ocean is there in Vadodara. So this is what I wanted. I just wanted to convey you people, those who are listening very patiently, and I can read lot of compliments are coming. Jagnesh, lot of compliments are coming. It is pouring like anything. But I would certainly tell to all those who are attending that yes, take up the chance, take up the issue. What he has given the idea that which are the group still nearly unattended, and then certainly you can perform very good. You can satisfy your eagerness to learn animals, and that is what actually I wanted to say. I congratulate Jignesh. I think Jignesh, I am really happy to share with you, with others also, that the first ever official webinar of the AOZ was greatly successful. I am really satisfied with this, and I take the opportunity for the other participants that please be member of this particular institution which we have developed, Association of Zoologists, so that we can cater you more and more information on zoological aspect. Please continue.
Okay, now if you have any questions, we can have some questions.
Thank you much, Dr. Jignesh. I think you have elaborated very beautifully from the starting of the history of taxonomy, their criteria, methods, how to explain any new species or re-describe any species, nomenclature, type of research paper, and finally you have given the very good idea that opportunities are there in the field of taxonomy, because nowadays students are taking that it is a very much boring subject, but it is not like that, and you have given many ideas and opportunities to the participants. So thank you very much, Dr. Jignesh,
Thank you.
to give these beautiful informations to all the participants, and now the session is open for other participants. If there is any query, you can ask to Mr. Jignesh.
Yes.
Okay, so lots of compliments are coming there.
Yeah, I am just going through it. If I find some questions,
Yes.
I'll definitely answer. If somebody is having any question, you can free to ask. I will try to give answer.
Jignesh, there is a demand, not a question,
Yes.
Okay.
but a demand that you please share with your this particular presentation
Sure, definitely.
with the OAZ, and from the AOZ we will be able to share with others.
Sure, definitely.
Please do this much. Thank you.
Sure, sir. Definitely, sir.
Thank you, Mankodi sir, President of AOZ, for providing us this platform and guidance for arranging these webinars. It is the first kind of its webinar of the AOZ. So thank you, sir, for guiding us in all the way. And
Dr. Paresh,
yes, sir.
hello.
Yes, sir.
There is one question in chat box. If
Yes.
Dr. Jignesh view it.
Yeah, just I'm just
Yes.
going through it, sir. But if you can,
yes.
if you found out the question, please ask.
Yes. One.
Sir,
Yeah, it is
one
related to
question is
molecular
there.
taxonomy.
Yes.
It is related to molecular taxonomy. I think the person who has posted can ask. Please, please. I could see that question.
Yeah. Sir, the question is from Randeep's Biology, and the question is, what is the role of molecular taxonomy by species identification?
Okay, okay. So that's a very good question. Today I actually read a beautiful paper on it. Basically, the DNA barcoding, which is nowadays very, very commonly, people are speaking about. So basically, what is the role of molecular taxonomy? When you get stuck up with, certain species where the, morphological differences are very, very less. For example, when you have, for example, we have a very common crab species found on the Gujarat coast, uh, which is the, I guess there is some disturbance coming. Okay.
Yeah, please continue.
Okay. So basically, when you are stuck up with a species where morphological variation is very, very less, okay, where at that time you can't differentiate between the specimen, at that time you should go for the molecular taxonomy. You can go for the DNA barcoding. We have the cytochrome oxidase, the gene which is available in the mitochondrial DNA. Okay, you can use this tool, and then this genetical analysis will tell you that whether the both the specimen are same or they are the different species. Mostly the DNA barcoding is used extensively for the vertebrate species. If you see the frog, the frog taxonomy paper coming from India, they always use the molecular phylogeny tool. But when it comes to invertebrate, right, the database about the DNA barcoding is very, very less. Okay, and then again there is a huge conflict going on between the old school taxonomies and the new school taxonomies. The old school taxonomies are always relying on the morphology, while the new school taxonomies, they are saying that okay, the what you call the DNA taxonomy can replace the the old traditional taxonomy. Recently, there was a publication coming from Shirke et al. In the what you call the Zookeys, where they describe 439 species just based on the DNA barcoding. So basically, there was a huge chaos in the taxonomical field. People are saying that according to ICZN, that is the International Commission for the Zoological Nomenclature, there are certain rules and regulations to describe a new species. For example, you have to have a specimen of that particular animal that is called as the holotype, that single specimen based on which you are describing. There are other specimen in the set, then you can call them as a paratype. You have to write down the diagnostic characters of this particular species. You have to click the photographs. Okay, then we have what you call, you have to compare the specimen with closely related species. This is how we describe a new species based on the traditional taxonomy as well as according to the code given by the ICZN. But in this particular paper, they describe a 439 species without submitting any specimen, without giving any diagnostic character, just based on the nucleotide sequences. Okay, so there was a huge what you call the chaos. Like the paper is published. On the other hand, the traditional taxonomies have published a paper commenting on the original paper. So molecular taxonomy just the starting phase, and the scientists are saying that DNA barcoding is a tool to solve the problems in the taxonomy. It is not an entire science. So there is no need to barcode each and every species which you found in your backyard. Okay, When you are stuck in the taxonomy, okay, when you don't have the morphology cannot answer the question, at that time you use the DNA barcoding to solve the puzzle of the taxonomy. Otherwise, right now we are following a single gene approach that is called COI, which is a very small gene of the entire genome of the animal. But when you keep on adding the genes, it will create more and more complexity, and then this particular the newest taxonomy will reach to a certain place where it will destroy the entire traditional taxonomy which was created in last 300 years. That is what I want to say about the molecular taxonomy.
With your permission, Jignesh,
Yes.
yeah, I have carried out this molecular taxonomy extensively for zoanthids and actinarians. And what you say is that we were actually relying on the mitochondrial COI, but in case of the actinarians, we have gone for other type of the molecules also. And yes, certainly it is. It cannot replace the traditional way of identification. It is absolutely required. But when there is some crypticness, very closeness, and we cannot distinguish very perfectly, like in color codes and all that, at that time probably this will help you in demarcating two very identical species, which we have been able to do it for zoanthids and actinarians from my lab. So this is my experience, but certainly what you said is that unless you have a official documented specimen and you have a problem of closeness of two specimens, then only you enter into molecular taxonomy. Otherwise, it is going to create a chaos. I agree. Fine.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
Thank you, Jignesh. There is one another question from the Dr. Anil Kumar. Do you please suggest a journal handbook for animal identification?
When it comes to vertebrates specifically, we have a lot of field guides to identify. Okay, we have birds, we have books for birds, we have books for reptiles. But when it comes to invertebrate groups, okay, we have very few number of guides. For example, we have book for spiders of India, we have books for butterflies. But there are certain groups where the field guide will not work. Okay, because you have to examine the specimen very carefully, you have to do the dissection. So the expert can come in at up to certain level, but for identification you have to have a specimen, and then there is no fixed keys for certain groups. Okay, that is what the first step is all about, that you have to collect so much of literature, and then you can go through the literature, and then you can start identifying. So in one PDF, okay, it will not be available for certain group of species.
Okay. Thank you.
While going through, Paresh,
Yes.
I don't know whether we will be able to scan through the chat after the session is over or not. If so, then please take the time and look into that, because I have gone through few points, like two of the members who are attending have requested AOZ to organize some particular type of program. So I think that would be encouraging us to plan our further programs. So if it is possible to look into this particular chat later on, or if we can store this chat, it would be nice. And meanwhile, those who have been giving very good suggestions of conducting some programs are requested to send us the information on our Telegram as well as our WhatsApp, or otherwise on our email ID. So we will certainly encourage the students who are here. I could see some good teachers are also here. We will certainly do as best as what we can. Thank you from my side, please.
Okay.
There is
Thank you,
one
sir.
question.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, Jignesh. There is one question, Dr. Jignesh, from the Rithin Raj.
Yeah.
That he's asking that could you please say more about the photography setup and the laboratory setup required to conduct invertebrate taxonomy studies, and
Okay.
also he is asking the preparation of scientific drawing using the software.
Okay. So there are three different questions. First is the photography setup. Okay, So according to the size of your specimen, for example, if it a bigger size, then there is no problem. You can take the photograph using the normal camera in the but you have to set up a light so the shadow can cross each other and there will not be any kind of shadow on your specimens. Okay, when it comes to a smaller specimen, you have to have a what you call the high end cameras which are having the macro lens, and then you will have multiple what you call the light sources coming from different direction, and that is how you do the photography. Once the photographs of different from the different angle of the animal is captured, you have to process this photos in Photoshop. You have to increase and decrease the what you call the brightness and shadow, and then all other options are available in Photoshop. Then you have to crop the animal and remove the background and place the black background or a white background so the animal looks beautiful, and it is of the publication quality. Okay, that is one. Second, about the laboratory setup required to conduct the invertebrate taxonomical studies. Okay, so for in case of laboratory setup, right, you have to have one stereo microscope, that is must for any kind of taxonomical studies on invertebrate. Second thing, you should have compound microscope when it comes to a very small part, right? You require compound microscope. You have to use the 10x or 30 or 40x lens to identify it. Okay, and then the overhead cameras which are now available in the market in a very nominal charges. Okay, for scientific drawing, once you have the photograph, you can go to Photoshop. Okay, and then you can trace the boundaries and then it will be converted into a beautiful drawing. But normally I use hand drawing because in hand drawing you can show beautiful detailing. So if you can do it yourself, otherwise you have to find out some people who are very good in drawing. You can for example, my wife is a microbiologist, okay, but she is having good hand in the drawing, so I trained her and now she is making beautiful vertical drawing. So you have to find out such person who can do this thing. Otherwise it's up to certain level, if the animal is big enough, up to certain level the Photoshop can do the justice to the drawing. Okay, anything else?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jignesh. Is there any question from the participants?
There is one question coming: how to name a new species
yes.
in the taxonomic process. Okay, so new species, how to identify? I already said that if the morphological differences are close enough, or there is a there is actually no fixed what you call level, how much differences should be there. But if you feel okay, there is enough differences, and if your reviewers are happy, your niche species will be published. To name a new species, I shared a few slides with you, but there is an entire document available by ICZM, how to name a new species. That's a entirely a different lecture. Okay, so you can later on ask me. Yes, anything else? I guess I have answered all the questions.
Okay, yes. Yes, so I think there will be no more questions regarding this.
Okay.
So thank you. With the permission of Mankodi sir, can we end the session, sir?
Yes. It was a very good presentation, very encouraging, because the way the questions are coming and where the way the suggestions are coming, certainly it is really satisfying. Congratulations to Dr. Jignesh. Keep it up, your spirit of doing very good work in the taxonomy field. Please continue.
Thank you very much, sir, providing beautiful chance to interact with a lot of people. Thank you so much, AOZ, for this beautiful opportunity.
Okay. Thank you, one and all, for being present on the platform of AOZ. Thank you.
Okay.